This is Kathy Grace again. I am the co-director of the Graduate Center for the Study of Early Learning, and we're glad that you're back with us in our conversation series. And today I am so pleased that we've got Scott Waller, who is the president and CEO of the Mississippi Economic Council, to visit with us today. And for some of you, you may say, well, now, Economic Council, how is that going to fit into what we've been talking about with regard to early care and education? So, Scott, thank you so much for allowing us to have this conversation. And also, if you could just give us a little background on what you do and what MEC does.
Sure. Thank you, Kathy. It's good to be with you. And you know, MEC is the State Chamber of Commerce. So what we are is we are a private, not-for-profit organization supported solely by our members, which are businesses in all industry sectors of all sizes all across the state of Mississippi. And to answer the question about why MEC would have a role with early childhood education, early child care, is pretty simple. One is, if we're going to grow our state, grow our economy, and really create the type of workforce that's going to be necessary for the future, we've got to make sure that we're creating that quality child care with a very strong educational component to help prepare students to be successful once they get into the K-12 system. Secondly, we need quality child care to give parents assurance that their child is being taken care of to allow them to be in the workforce today. So it's really a twofold issue for us from a standpoint of making sure that we're putting the type of workers we need into the workforce, and they don't have to worry about their children not being taken care of. And then secondly, making sure that we've got, you know, the ability to train and better prepare our students as they move forward throughout this process, because honestly, that's how we're going to help move our state forward.
Well, in terms of what the workforce looks like today and what you envision the workforce looking like in 2040, what are some things that you think that we should be aware of as the general public in Mississippi, that without a strong early childhood system, are we going to have problems in filling the job market in 2040? Are we going to have problems in meeting the needs in the 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the question. I think, you know, we've got immediate needs in this area. I mean, right now we've got, you know, we're in a situation now where there is businesses and industry all across the state of Mississippi trying to get their workforce built back up. You know, with COVID, it really kind of made the problem come much more to the forefront. And, you know, we've been working at MEC for a number of years, and you know this from work we've done together, of creating ways to help improve the early childhood experience from the education standpoint. What we've learned is that just childcare in general now has become a key issue for our workforce today, because if they don't have the ability to have their child somewhere that they feel safe, they don't have the ability to go to work. I mean, this is an anecdotal story, but yesterday I was getting on the elevator with someone in our office building, and she was leaving at the same time I was, and she said she was trying to beat the crowd. She said, I normally don't have to leave this early, but my daycare center where she takes her child has changed their hours. They close at 5 instead of 6 like they always have. And she said, on top of that, they now don't open until 7 where they used to open at 6. So it's a combination of a lot of things. It's having the workforce at the child care centers to be able to open normal hours. It's having the ability to fill all of the slots by having the teachers and everybody in place to do the things they need to do. So it's really an issue that, you know, we need to really focus on how do we address our needs today to help us really think about where these children that are entering these centers are going to be 18, you know, years from now when they're graduating from high school, or, you know, 20 plus years from now when they're graduating from their post-secondary efforts to enter the workforce. It's really that combination of both. We've got to think about where we are today in order to really be prepared for tomorrow.
Well, I know that part of your job and part of the job of anybody in economic development is to try to recruit business into the state or into a community. And with regard to some of the new what I read in the paper, like Amazon's coming up to DeSoto County and into some of these other potential, hopefully successful communities that are going to receive some of the new, I guess you could say, industry support there. How hard is it for a person who's recruiting business to come into a state where you've got a workforce shortage right now, or does that even come into play? And what about our educational system? When you're talking to Mr. X, who has a big say-so in a relocation of an industry, do they ask questions about the condition of education and such in the state?
Well, we really, what we do is we're there to support the economic development community. We're not the ones actually in the trenches recruiting, but we want to make sure that they have all the tools in place. So I'm talking to economic developers all the time. I mean, usually one or two every week that I have some conversation with about what is the latest, where are we, how are we competing, what do we need to be doing differently? And years ago, it was all about the incentives. What are you going to be able to give me to come? And it's not that that's not part of the equation, but they don't even look at you if you don't have the workforce and the available workforce to do what they are looking to do when they come in. So that's a big part of economic development that will be the case for years to come. And so we've got to be thinking about how are we putting things in place that's going to allow us to have the workforce availability to meet the needs of these future employers, and really even our current employers that are looking to expand. I mean, they're trying to find new employees and fill there. So it's really kind of it's a double-edged sword that if we're not very careful, we're going to find ourselves, being hurt as a result of it. But we have to make sure that, we focus more on getting this brought to the forefront so that people understand. Now, there's been great progress. I will tell you, I feel like that there's been some things done in the last, 5 to 10 years that I think are making a difference. But it's so small compared to what we really, the overall need of the state. And I think that's where we've got to just keep pushing for expanding what we're doing, building on those successes, and trying to, kind of spread it out so that there's more parts of the state and more opportunities for our parents to utilize these programs, and more importantly, make sure these programs remain strong so that our students are really prepared when they enter kindergarten and begin their secondary education, elementary education.
I appreciate your stressing the successes, because I know you worked with the National Chamber of Commerce and you actually were able to get one of our child care providers here in the state to go to Washington and share some of the information about what we're doing. Do you find that connection that you have with the National Chamber of Commerce is also given the whole, I guess you could say, the national focus on early care and education, a part of the conversations you can have? I know through your, as y'all used to call them, road shows, as you went across the state and talking with people, sharing information. With what you've done in this past year, are you seeing that early care and education is something that comes up in your conversations?
Yeah, it does. And what has been great about the partnership that we've created with the U.S. Chamber Foundation, which oversees their program looking at child care and early education, is the resources that become available as a result of it to help us figure out, okay, what is it that we can ask them, okay, what's happening in other states that are being successful? What are we doing? And really, when we sat down and they reached out to me when they did a national, I guess, research study that was called Workforce Today, Workforce Tomorrow. So I use that terminology a lot. It's, the workforce today is impacted by what the availability is. The workforce tomorrow is impacted by what the educational component is in childcare. So they wanted to expand that, and they picked 4 states across the country, including Mississippi was one of them. And I sat down and talked with them. I said, look, guys, we got a lot of work we have to do. I said, but we don't need to just come in here and say, oh, well, you're so far behind, or let's talk about how we build on the successes. And what they found was a child care center of the northeast part of the state that is part of the Early Learning Collaborative and is supported by businesses in the community have been very successful in using this program that exists in the state. So this year, the dollars for the Early Learning Collaborative was expanded through legislation that put more dollars into it, and I think it's continuing to build. But again, we've got to get to a point where we're still not at critical mass by any stretch of the imagination. It's still only a handful, but those handful have shown that this can be successful. So let's build on that and see what we can do to really create more opportunities for more children across the state.
The collaboratives really are models of how community businesses and individuals in communities have supported these programs through donations, through with Mississippi, I think is probably the only state that allows you to pay your state income tax to a collaborative if that's what you choose to do, and it's counted as your state income tax payment. And I've done that myself on several occasions, but I don't think the word is out as much as it needs to be about that being an option for people to pay their state tax in a way that actually goes to benefiting the children, that you can see with your own eyes that this is making a difference, rather than just all the payments in Jackson and it's going to the state for something.
I agree with you. I think we need to do a better job, particularly now that there's more dollars available to promote this, because I think there's a lot of business out there that would much rather choose something that they know will be beneficial and be able to take that tax credit as opposed to just paying the taxes. Now that it's not enough that's going to keep them from, the amount they've set aside really works within our state budget. So it's not like it's going to have a negative impact.
No.
It's still going to be a positive impact. Somebody's going to do it. And what we need to do is make sure that we've got as many people that can participating in that. And I think that's one of the things that as this has grown from the initial 3 million to then 6 to now about 18, that we need to be really promoting this a lot stronger than maybe what we have been.
And hopefully that will happen as it gets into more communities and people will start to say, well, how do we get one in our community, and what we have to do and that sort of thing. Well, I know that you put many miles on your car and you get to visit lots of different communities and see us at our best and sometimes maybe at our not so best. In terms of what your hope is for us as a state, and again, is your role as a supporter or a cheerleader or a person who is going to make sure that industry puts its best foot forward. What are some things that we can do in the early childhood field to help you or to help them with regard to supporting the things we've talked about?
Well, I think the biggest thing it comes back to, let's just make sure that we're making everyone aware, not only the importance of it, but what are some of the things that are available already, and then how do we build on them? You asked me earlier about our road shows, and yes, this topic did come up. I mean, it is something that, as I said, businesses are seeing it. They're being impacted by people not being able to find the type of childcare they need in order to be at work. Parents are impacted because they would much rather be at work in most cases. And I think that that's one of the things that we've got to continue to focus on. So as we move forward and as we look at this, I think it's just a case of making sure we do not lose the momentum that's been created over the last few years. And we continue to talk about this as one of our biggest needs, is making sure that we're giving all of our children across the state an opportunity to have that strong foundation from a safety standpoint, as well as from an educational standpoint, to be able to move into, the next phase of their education and be prepared for it and be ready for it. And I think that will make the biggest difference long term than anything else we could do for our educational system.
Well, I want to thank you for giving us your time today. And again, I know you're very busy. And if during the legislative session that's coming up, if we see some hot topics that relate to early childhood and economic development, I may give you a call and see if you'd like to spend a little more time with us in talking about whatever the new news may be.
Well, please do, and know that as y'all are working, and I know there are a lot of people across the state of Mississippi that work very hard in this area. and I really appreciate the work that y'all do. I always tell people I'm not the expert really in anything. My job is to make sure I surround myself with people who understand the issue, and then we can go from there to try to figure out what our best path forward is. So I feel like, this community, the early childhood education, the quality childcare education community is really coalescing to work toward continuing to shine the light on this as being an important issue, and also look for, workable solutions to help us be successful here in Mississippi. So thank you for all that you do and have done for a number of years. Kathy, I know we MEC's had a relationship with you for a long, long time, and I really appreciate all the work that you've done through those years. So keep us in the loop, and we're here to kind of help and do what we can to make sure that this issue is given the attention it deserves.
Well, thank you again, Scott, and I look forward to talking to you at a later date. So thanks again.
Thanks so much.